Big mistake in the United States, we haven't asked the question of what kind of financial system do we want. We should, what do you want a financial system for? Let me just give you two things that we should have been doing, and we haven't. One thing that we want is a financial system that lends to small businesses, to medium-sized businesses, create new enterprises. A small part of our financial system, the venture capital firms, were providing money for Google and creating new firms. Very small part. Most of it was off getting into mischief. So we want, in my mind, in recreating a financial system, we want one to actually do what it's supposed to do. The second part is it's supposed to be a means of payments. Modern technology has changed what is possible as a means of payment. It should be possible for you to go to the retailer with your debit card and do a transaction that takes money from your account to the retailer's account, and it should cost a fraction of a penny. In the United States and all over the world, with the exception of a couple countries, they charge for that easy transaction 1 or 2%. And that means $10,000, if you spend $10,000, they get $1,000. They get $100 for something that costs pennies. They do it because of lack of competition, because they act exclusively. They have actually blocked the creation of an efficient electronic payments mechanism. So all this discussion about efficient markets, innovative financial system, it should be clear. They were innovative in circumventing regulations, circumventing accounting standards, circumventing tax law. That was what they were doing. It was counter-social productivity. But they were not innovative in designing products that helped ordinary Americans manage their risk or in creating an efficient electronic payments mechanism. They were resisting these innovations. And now the job is to try to make a financial system that actually functions. Okay, let me talk a little bit about Iceland, important aspect of Iceland, and that is one of your natural advantages is that you're rich in natural resources, fish, energy, which are renewable natural resources, particularly fish if you manage it correctly. Now, these are resources that really belong to all the people. Unfortunately, it's not clear that you're getting the rents that you should be getting from these natural resources. And the basic principle of taxation is that you should tax rents, your natural resources, because those can't go anywhere else. Those are yours, and you need to get those back. The way you allocated them originally, your fishing rights, was a mistake. I think most people looking at what you did, I think there's a global consensus that you blew it. But it's a mistake that you can correct, because you can tax natural resources. You won't fully rectify the inequities that you created, but at least you can recapture some of those resources for society. The important thing is, going forward, make sure you don't make the same mistake again. Now, one of the things that you should be very aware of is these natural resources are likely to become even more valuable in the future. Markets often fail. I mean, that's the lesson of this crisis. They failed in pricing risk, and right now they are also failing in pricing scarcity of natural resources, and very badly so, and the most important, associated with carbon. The global price of carbon is zero. The correct price of carbon is probably $80 a ton. And that will be the price probably in 30 years. The question is, who will get the capital gain from the increase in the value of your geothermal and hydroelectric power? Will you give it to the foreigners because you've given away your natural resources, or will you keep it for the people in Iceland? That's really the big issue that you have to decide right now. And you can tell from probably the way I'm talking, I think that if this were in America, I would be very strong in saying, I think it's an outrage to give that away to anybody else. It should be a public resource, and we should keep it as a basic part of our social, of our society.
Hallelujah.
One of the ideas that's very current is public-private partnerships. Most of these are partnerships only in name. They're basically public-private swindles. Let me just describe the American one that I know better, that we call PPIP, Public-Private Investment Partnership. The government puts in 92% of the money, the private sector gets 50% of the gain, and the government picks up most of the losses. Now, how do you like that? Now, I got a email from one of the hedge funds saying, you know, it was actually a very honest email. He said, I think this is outrage. But as long as the government's going to do it, I'm going to get my investors in there. This is a great deal for me. There's a lot of people that I know in the hedge fund industry. They say, if you're going to do it, I'm going to take advantage. I think it's outrageous. In general, you think about it. Things that much worse in UK, where they're taking government buildings, selling them to the private sector. It's a hidden form of borrowing, but it's borrowing at the interest rate that the private sector demands, which is 15%, rather than borrowing at, right now, U.S. government and UK government borrow at 2%. Now, why would you borrow at 15% when you could borrow at 2%? It's a little bit of a mystery, except if you're giving away money to your friends. So it's a little bit of a mystery. Most of these public-private partnerships are very hard to find efficiency gains, very easy to find large wealth transfers at very high cost to the public. What I said is that we made a mistake in thinking of finance as an end in itself. It's a means to an end. That's true of the economy more generally. The economy is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. Ends are better lives for our people, social justice. So, you know, a whole set of views of what kind of society do we want to create. And not only today, but in the future. In this period, I think beginning in the early 80s, Thatcherism, Reaganism, we a little bit forgot that broader perspective, and we took the economy as an end in itself. And what's really important is we even mismeasured the economy. I've been working on a commission with Sarkozy. This shows I do want to help France. In how we measure GDP to reflect notions of sustainability, notions of the environment, notions of broader views of societal well-being, which GDP systematically mistakes. And so I think my own feeling is that the times of crises are also good times to think more broadly about the issue of the social contract, the social compact, social solidarity, and to think about, the way they say that a near-death experience is after you have a serious illness, saved from death, you get back, you say, what are the things I really care about? And people can say, they care about their family, the things. Well, I think our economy has been, in Iceland and in the United States, in a near-death experience. And we should use that occasion to think about what are the things that are really important to us as a society, and try to reconstruct out of this a society that is more consonant with our values.